Hey guys, and welcome back to the Blue Podcast Network. This is the Blue Podcast. As you can see next to me, I have Matthew. My other host today is Lloyd, and next to him is Bradley Varnam. Now, this is probably one of the most unique guests we've had in terms of a job.
Unique?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell our audience what it is that you do?
The long and the short of it is I tell people I talk out loud for money.
Yep.
I'm a vocal... That is what I do.
Fair enough.
My company is actually called The Vocal Fox Limited. It consists of me, and that's it.
Okay.
So, week to week, I work in horse racing, greyhound racing, build-up and commentary. I do graduation ceremonies, reading the names out. And I also work for Leicester City Football Club.
Ah.
And we've got a few fans here as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure you're wondering why Matthew's here on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because now it all makes sense.
But we don't want to talk about Leicester, do we?
Yeah,
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I think the best place to start would be at the start of
The very beginning.
At the very beginning. Now, I know you started off in acting.
Yes.
How did you get into that?
So basically, when I was 8 years old, my cousin Mitchell was actually in a Bachelor's Soup advert on the television, and he was also in an episode of a programme called All Creatures Great and Small that's just had a bit of a revamp. Yeah, and I sort of watched him on the telly and went, I want to do that. So my mother enrolled me in a drama school, drama classes, and I started doing a bit of poetry, a bit of Shakespeare, a bit of acting, got into theatre, heavily into theatre. Did my first professional pantomime at the age of 15.
Wow.
Nice.
I got the mighty sum of £50 a week. Now, bearing in mind, at the time, I was getting £2 a week doing a paper round.
Because that's quite good money,
I
isn't
thought
it?
I was Rockefeller. 50 quid a week was like, whoa, you want to pay me that much to go on stage?
Yeah.
Incredible. So yeah, I did that. And then I met a guy called Andy, who is now the lead singer of Shawaddy Waddy, believe it or not. This is random. We started a double act. We started doing bits and pieces. We did a bit of a summer season. We did a lot of stuff together. Then he sort of went into music and I diversified. Having gone, because what you got to remember is back in the olden days, before.
What years are we talking here?
We're talking it would have been early, maybe 84, 85, mid 80s, late 80s. If you had to do an audition, you had to go and do an audition, or you had to find somebody with a video camera to video it on a tape, put the tape in an envelope, and send the tape. Nowadays, because my wife does a bit of acting, she does a self-tape. She'll get the script sent to her via email. She'll stand in the corner of the living room, set up a tripod and a camera, and she'll do the lines to camera, and she'll send it, and it's gone.
Yes.
So,
Easy,
so I ended up doing quite a few auditions, sitting in audition rooms, and back in the day, if you're a bloke, you needed to be handsome, good looking, got all the leads.
So you
and
hit the building.
obviously, I got all that. No. And I just sat there one day, and I looked around the room, and I thought, I'm never going to get this. And I thought, I need to diversify. And at the time, this sounds really, really bad, but I was a smoker, okay? And in those days, you could smoke pretty much anywhere. And there was a Ladbrokes Bookmakers. And I used to go in there purely to have a cigarette, if it was wet or cold or whatever. And I sat listening. And I'd always been into sort of horse racing in a way. And I was listening to this guy doing like the continuity and stuff like that, and I thought, I could do that. Wonder what I need to do. So I started bombarding bookmakers, William Hill, Ladbrokes, Corals, the big three at the time, with my CV. And again, you had to post it, send it off. And then after a while, I got a phone call from William Hill, and they said to me, come and talk to us. And basically, I got asked to go in and talk for half an hour, live. It was sort of a live audition interview, and then I started getting shifts there. In the meantime, I've got two brothers. My younger brother, mad football fan, loves the game like I do. My older brother, 3 years older, hates the game with a passion. Overpaid prima donnas, paid far too much, can't stand it. Why are you wasting your time watching that? He was the one that actually rang me up and said, there's a job for you in the paper. And it was literally in the paper, 1997, so we're going a few years later, and it said, experienced stadium announcer required for Leicester City Football Club. And I sat there and I thought, how many experienced stadium announcers are sitting around waiting for an advert in the paper? You know, like, oh, no, nothing today, darling. No, nothing today. Nothing today. So, obviously, I had no experience stadium announcing at the time.
Well, can I just ask, how would you, unless you're doing it, how do you actually get that experience? It's like a question when you're younger and you're applying for jobs and they say you need experience.
Yep.
Well, it's like, how do I get the experience if I don't have
a
job?
It was a little bit like getting your equity card back in the day. You had to do professional work to get your equity card, but you couldn't do professional work unless you had an equity card.
That sounds a bit confusing.
It was very confusing and it was a very long route. It took us years to get them, but I did get my equity card in the end.
Yeah.
So I thought the same question. How many experienced stadium announcers are sitting around waiting for that advert to appear? So I rang up the club and I said, look, I've had no experience of stadium announcing. I said, I've done a bit of television, I've done a bit of radio, I've done voiceover. And they said, oh, come on down. So I went down there and I found out that 225 people had applied for the job, of which 220 were fans.
I was going to say,
Who thought it was a free ticket. Okay. But when they were told what they had to do and et cetera, they whittled it down to 5.
And you were in that 5.
And I was in that 5. And at the time, the chief exec was a guy called Barry Pierpoint, who was quite an eccentric character for a chief executive. And it was a time when Crystal Palace had started using cheerleaders, and he wanted the razzmatazz to be at Filbert Street, because we were at Filbert Street at the time. And so basically they whittled it down to 4, then 3, then 2, and I got down to the last 2, and basically he said, right, we're going to go out into the stadium, you're going to have a go each, we want you to read out the teams, give it the full beans. So we both went out there, gave it the full beans, and about a week later I got a phone call. Didn't get the job.
Wow.
And they said to me, we thought you were a little bit over the top, would you do the reserve games? Now, my philosophy in life, and I'll pass this on to anybody, is don't turn anything down initially. Go and do it, see what it's all about, and then make your decision, okay? And I thought, reserve games, do I really want to do that? Anyway, the reserve games weren't just reserve games. There was something called family night football, okay? And it was an opportunity for families to go, take the kids and experience the stadium without the hustle and bustle of massive away support, the noise and everything else. And we built this, and I started doing the reserve games, and we built this up to this huge thing. I think one game when we played Man United, it got to a point where they just opened the doors and let people in because the queues outside to get in were so big. They had to delay kickoff for 15 minutes at a reserve game.
Wow.
Honestly, it was crazy.
Was that because of the United stars? Or?
Well, there was a rumour that Ryan Giggs and David Beckham were coming back from injury. I think Giggs played, but Beckham didn't. But what used to happen is, pre-match and at half-time, I used to go pitch side and I used to play games and give stuff away. And people used to turn up just for that. And then when they didn't win anything at half-time, half the crowd would go. And that was it. But what happened was, the guy who got offered the first team job was a no-show.
Didn't show up.
Didn't turn up. For whatever reason, I will never know. Nobody's ever told me.
Wow.
And they rang me up and said, right, we want you to go in the PA box with Mel, who's the guy who's doing it at the time. Bearing in mind, he did 35 years. I've done 26. So if you ever get offered a job like that, don't go, maybe next time.
Yeah.
Because there won't be a next time.
There won't be a next time. No.
So I stood next to Mel. I was the DJ. And the funny thing was, the PA box at Filbert Street used to be right in the corner, over the corner flag. And you couldn't see the other corner flag. So basically, if somebody swung one in and it went straight in, you had no idea who scored. There was no replays, there was no monitor, there was nothing. And Mel, who was the announcer at the time, worked for Swarovski Crystal, and he had to go to Switzerland quite a lot. And he basically, I'd get a phone call in the afternoon going, Mel's not going to make it back, you're on the mic tonight. First game I ever did was against Arsenal in the 3-3 draw that Birdcamp was just unplayable. That was my first game.
I've heard about that game, and I wasn't even born.
Honestly, check it out. Check it out. It's absolutely incredible. But that was my first game. And to get the call at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've got to be there for 5. Woo, a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
a little bit nervous.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's always good when you get thrown into those things, I think, though.
It is. You're right.
Like you're forced to learn quite quickly. It's like the sink or swim.
Do you know what? I was just about to say that, the fight or flight. And there's been moments all the way through my career, just before we were stepping out onto the pitch to do the presentation for the Premier League trophy. Did I mention we won the Premier League in 2016?
No, you didn't mention
I didn't.
that one.
Okay.
No.
I must mention that later.
Yeah.
But just before we were about to step out, the tunnel was rammed. It was absolutely rammed. Chief executive, the owner, the chairman, all the friends and family, and I'm in the corner there, just listening to a bit of Eminem, Lose Yourself, jung, 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 just getting myself in the zone.
So you have pre-game music.
Oh, I have Lose Yourself. That's the one.
You have pre-game music.
That's a good one to have.
And listen to the lyrics of that. You only get one shot, one opportunity, and sometimes that's true, and you need to take that opportunity. But I was in the tunnel, and Susan Whelan came over to me, the chief exec, and she said, "Are you ready for this, Brad?" And I went, "Oh yes, I've been waiting for this all my life." And those moments when you step out, and I've got microphones from TalkSport and BBC and everybody in my face because I'm on the mic and they want to hear it going out live on the radio. And if you thought for 1 second what the global audience was for that, you'd never do it. It's madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit mad to do what I do and what other people do. Step out and talk in front of all those people. And that was nothing compared to the victory parade the following week. Because when I stepped out onto that stage, there was about 30,000 people when it started. By the end of it, there was 250,000 people on the park. Oh my gosh. There was helicopters flying around. There was Al Jazeera, ABC, NBC. Honestly, it was utter madness.
Being in the crowd that day, it was crazy.
It was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was crazy. And for me, because some people think, oh my God, that's 250,000 people. Were you nervous? And I sort of said, yeah, in a way, I was a little bit nervous, but it was funny because when it first started, I got there at like 11 in the morning. I went on stage about 3. Obviously, we had briefings and everything else, and this is going to happen. Well, I was told this is going to happen, that's going to happen, but because it's live, things didn't happen, and you have to feel and everything else. And basically, I went out and they said, just go out and say hello to the audience. I went, no, Philbert, the guy dressed as Philbert Fox. Philbert, come on, we're going to have a sing-song. So we went out and we split the audience and we started chanting songs and everything else. And when you've got a crowd that big, if you lose them for a second, they will eat you alive. You've got to go out, you've got to attack them. Because there was, I won't say who it was, but there was a guy there who came on and was supposed to officially open the ceremony. And he had full gear on, cropped out, everything else. And I said to him, you've obviously spoken in public many times. I said, this is a football crowd. It is different. I said, maybe you could go out and say, I'd like to thank Leicester City for allowing me to wear their home kit for next season. Obviously it wasn't. You know, and it would have got a laugh. No, went out there, just, hello everybody, thank you for coming. Within 30 seconds, the crowd had turned on him and they were chanting, not very nice things.
Yeah.
And then I have to drag it back. And it just makes things difficult, but it is when you've got your earpieces in and the sound man and you're talking away and they're going, right, we're going to go live to the coach now, and right, we're going to go live to the coach now, and nothing appears and nobody speaks.
It's that delay on TV,
and then you're like, no, we're not going to the coach, and the sound guy just goes, keep going, Brad. With what? Please.
Nothing to say.
Yeah. So I was just, anybody go to Chelsea last week? Yeah, great, weren't it? And you just have a chat with the crowd. But
on the Chelsea thing,
yes,
you were speaking to me before the podcast about kind of one of the most surreal football experiences you had there.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't think you'd ever get this at any other ground for any other club. We won the title. We were given the title at home against Everton, but we still had a game to play against Chelsea. So we all went to Chelsea, and Chelsea, God bless them, had sort of done out the tunnel, the concourse in the away end with Leicester players on posters saying champions. And when we got in the ground, Leicester fans started singing Stand Up for the Champions. And normally the Leicester fans stand up for the champions. The whole ground stood up and started applauding. And it was Honestly, I don't think you'd ever see that anywhere else. Can you imagine Liverpool winning the title at Chelsea or Man City winning it?
You'd never get it anyway.
You'd never get that.
I'm not going to lie, mate.
I will always remember that moment. It was incredible.
Yeah. Now, I obviously have, as a fan, want to know more about this. What was it like being pitch side the day it all happened and we won it?
Do you know what? It's the longer. This sounds really weird, but the more I look back, the more I enjoy it, because when you are in the moment, you have a job to do, you are paid to do that job, and you have to be professional. You know, all my mates were tanked up by kickoff.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do that. You know, can you imagine if I went, hey, come on? You know, that
I mean, with football fans,
actually, because
with football fans, they might quite like that. Yeah,
I should try that. No, but it's really weird. It all started normally when I do a game. I get there 3 hours before kickoff. So if it's 3 o'clock, get there at 12. You wander from the car park next to the stadium, around by the shop, in the entrance. There's a few people milling around, mainly people setting up. On that day, the Everton game, it was rammed from 11 in the morning. Everybody was out, breakfast, beers, whatever, just trying to get a ticket, trying to just soak up the atmosphere. There was loads of stuff on the on outside on the brick weave, and that the club had done, and marquees and all sorts of things. So then we'd had a rehearsal the day before on the pitch as to how the presentation was going to go, because the problem is when you do a presentation, and I've done a few over the years, everything's fine until the players get involved. Okay. Because the players have, most of the time, just played a game. The adrenaline's flowing. They're just about to lift a trophy. They've probably absolutely dehydrated and started necking beer straight away. They've got the families there as well. So you'll say, right, we're going to go out. We're going to do the presentation. Then you're going to come off. And as a group, you're going to make your way around the pitch so everybody gets to look at you and the trophy. Okay? Yeah, fine. Never happens. Never, ever happens. It's an absolute nightmare. Everyone I've ever done, never, ever happens.
Yeah, because I remember the championship one this season, because they came into the corner, because I sit in the SK1
They stayed in the corner, didn't they?
And they stayed there for like 20 minutes, yeah.
People were saying to me, Brad, we stayed for an hour and they never came round. I went, they were supposed to, I'm sorry. You know. But yeah, they are a law unto themselves, shall we say. But you know, they've done all the hard work. If they want to go and stand and dance with a load of fans, then so be it, and they're the lucky fans. But they should have literally gone around the pitch. But you know, but going back to that day, it was like I say, you have to be in that situation. You have to be professional. You have to do the job you are paid, because even when the trophy had been presented, I was going around with the trophy with a microphone, and the director of communications was standing next to me saying, Brad, we might go to Claudio in a minute and have a bit of a chat. Okay, are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. No, we're not doing Claudio yet. No, we might do Vardy. No, we're not going to do Vardy. And all the time you're going, right, what's my first question? Who is it? Who's it going to be? And you've always got to be switched on.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was until after, I mean, genuinely, I still can't believe we won the league. I know that sounds daft, but it is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Especially when you're somebody of my age who has seen as the roller coaster this club's been on is unbelievable. League One, Championship, up and down. But we were a yo-yo club for years and years and years. And, you know, I've done, at the end of every season, we do a lap of appreciation. Now, when you've won something or you've had a good season, most of the crowd will stay because they get to see the players a little bit closer and, you know. But there has been times, and I won't mention names, but there has been times when there's been maybe 30 people left in the stadium.
Yeah, I remember a few of them.
when they've got round to the other side.
Oh my gosh.
And they're basically standing there shouting abuse. And I'm there going, well, that's it. Thanks for your support. Have a great summer. See you next year. Oh my God, this is awful. But you have to do it.
I know you brought up Vardy, and I know you wanted to ask about him.
What is he like? Because you must have met him on a fair few occasions. What's he actually like as a person? Because obviously he's got a reputation of being a bit crazy and stuff. And like, is he like that all the time? Or?
He's a bit of a character. Let's say he's a bit of a character. Yeah, there's been I can't really say too much, but there's been conversations sort of in the tunnel with various people that I've overheard, and I used to do stuff to camera in the tunnel, and he'd quite often come in and go, "Oh, filming, are we? Are we filming?" But But yeah, and he's just an incredible character and an incredible athlete as well. I remember, he's getting on a bit now, and I remember back end of last season we were coming off after a win. He played the whole 90 minutes, and I think it was Victor Christensen, or no, he was on loan. I was on loan. There was another player, and he literally ran up behind him and leapfrogged over his head.
Probably Fatawu.
Yeah, as he went down the tunnel. I'm like, you've just run around for 90 minutes, and you just honestly, he's like a jack in a box. He never stops. But yeah, he is a character. I remember at the Victory Parade, I was standing one side of the stage and I was introducing the players one by one, and I couldn't. There's so many people on stage, so many people backstage. I couldn't see who was next. And Vardy stood next to me and he's going, Riyad Mahrez, and I go Riyad Mahrez, and he's repeating all the names to me. But
what about the championship one this season, where he obviously had that quite famous quote with his daughter? That was. Quite funny.
Yes, the less said about that, the better. Yeah, that was another occasion where it was all planned out. There was marks on the stage where we were going to stand and film, and the cameraman was going to be over my shoulder, and we got the microphone for this, and I was going to speak to Enzo first, and then I was going to speak to the chairman, and blah 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 blah. And basically, the players turned up and just hung over the balcony, and it was a rugby scrum, and just a nightmare.
Yeah,
just an absolute.
Is there a lot of prep then before these, like as in meetings and?
Generally, because I have the experience, and we've been here before, and a lot of the team around me, it's a team game, and there's a lot of members that have been there 10, 15. I mean, Lou, who I work with, she's been there 30 odd years. I think she's just done 30 years. So she knows what's expected, what needs to be done, who needs to be where at what time, and it is all. Basically, you have a running order almost to the minute, and it's your job to make sure that it runs like clockwork, because you have marks to hit. In the Championship, kick-off time was maybe 3 o'clock, maybe 3 minutes past, maybe 5 past. We'd have build-up music that would run to a minute to 3, and then the guy on the pitch, post-on Paul, we call him, play the post on, teams run out. In the Championship, we were playing 1 extra track, 2 extra tracks, and I'm like, are we bothering? Are we bothering?
Why do you think that is then?
Because it's because it's not the Premier League.
Okay.
Because the Premier League is shown all over the world. A lot of the games are live, and they are running to advert schedules that have to fit in, not necessarily in this country, but other countries as well. And, when we do things like Remembrance Day, or somebody's died, or we're doing a minute's applause or a minute's silence, the floor manager will come up to me from Sky and say, what are you saying? Can we time it? And he'll go, yeah, that's all right. Or, no, we need to shorten that by 10 seconds. Or, can you speed up? And if I'm reading the teams out, somebody in my ear will go, quicker, Brad, quicker. I'm like, number 9, Jamie Vardy. Hey, right, moving on. Right, and
I've always loved the way he's left to the end. I mean, obviously it's done for crowd.
Well, this is it. Somebody on that the other thing you were talking about earlier. Somebody said to me, "Was it your idea to put Jamie Vardy last?" And I said, "Yeah, it kind of was, because we sort of do numerical order, and he's number 9, and you've got players coming in wearing 36, 48, 27, but you don't really want to finish on." No disrespect, you don't really want to finish on a defensive player or maybe a young kid that's coming in. You want to finish on the club legend.
Yeah.
So if he starts, he's always last, because it gives that little extra boost.
Yeah, it also helps that he's captain, because it makes more sense to the away fans, like when he's read out last, because he's captain as well.
That's another thing he loves. He loves the pantomime. Jamie Vardy is the pantomime villain.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. And when fans sing derogatory songs about him or members of his family, he motivates him, and you just think, oh, he'll score in a minute. And then he runs the length of the pitch and stands in front of the away fans.
Yeah, just doing certain celebrations like, what was it, Crystal Palace? The eagle, didn't they? Yeah.
Now, obviously, there'll be a lot that you can't say.
Yes.
But what are the sort of craziest things that you can tell us that you've seen on either the away or home bench, like whilst you've been standing in between them? Is there anything crazy that you've remembered seeing?
Not so much crazy, but what I will say is this: I would never be a 4th official for all the tea in China. Honestly, it is relentless, and I have to say this: some of I think the Italians so passionate. They are such a passionate people that if there's a 50-50 throw-in on the halfway line and it goes against them, the whole bench is up. And they're like, oh, you know.
Because obviously the European games, that's,
absolutely screaming. I'm just like, really? And then you get issues where you get the home bench saying, oh, calm down, lads. And then they'll start having a go. And I'm sort of underneath it all going, oh, this is going to kick off in a minute.
So where are you stood during the games?
I'm stood at the edge of the tunnel.
Okay.
So I've got Leicester on the right, away team on the left.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting place to stand, because when I first started, I was up in the control room, which is a PA box right in the corner of the cop.
Which side?
So basically, if you're looking at the cop, it was top right-hand corner.
Oh, right, okay.
So the boxes go round and they stop, and the last one is the police box, and then I was next to it.
Right, okay.
And they put in a sliding window so I could get so I could hear the atmosphere. And then when our club ambassador had his heart attack about 5 or 6 years ago, he basically had a heart attack next to a nurse who saved his life.
Oh,
it was incredible,
like
really. Birch, yeah, absolutely legend. Is another story. I was in this PA box, and then when he had the heart attack, they wanted to bring me down, so I was pitch side. So there was a sort of pitch side presentation. But when I was in the PA box, there was no replay or anything. So if somebody scored up the other end, if I didn't see who scored it, I'd have 16 seconds to go, anybody see that? Anybody? And lean out going, who scored? Anybody?
Well, you'd ask the crowd sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So I do the live tweets for Eastbourne Borough Football Club.
Okay.
And obviously there's no replays from the press box. And the amount of times you kind of like run to either the opposition media, did you see you scored that? Or the PA box, did you see you scored that? And it's like, I've got like literally 30 seconds to get a tweet out that we've scored.
Yeah. The worst thing is that, I don't know about you, but because I've watched football for so long, if we're on the attack and say the ball's out wide, couldn't care less who's on the ball. I'm looking to see who's making the run into the box. Who is that potential goal scorer? And there's been 2 occasions. One was Jordan Stewart, which I found out afterwards. He pinged a ball in from the halfway line that went straight in. I was like, did that go straight in? Who kicked it? No, I hadn't got a clue. And it was 50-50, and I picked the wrong one. And you can always tell. Because if you go, Leicester City goal scorer, number 9, Jamie Vardy, and the crowd go, yay! And if you go, Leicester City goal scorer, number 9, Jamie Vardy, and they go, was he?
Wait, what?
Was he? Was he? And there's like a lull.
So
and you
much
just
confusion.
think, oh, did I get that one wrong? Okay. Might have to rectify that at half time. But I will put out, if I find out that it's a different goal scorer, I'll wait till half time, because I know a lot of people have bets on first goal scorers.
Yeah.
And it's important. And it's important for the player as well. But sometimes you'll see, if there's like 6 players trying to toe poke one in from 5 yards, you'll see them get up and they'll go,
yeah.
And I'll go, he scored it.
Yeah.
So is it always obvious? Because I know because I sit in the cop and I can't always see who scores down the far end. So how do you know in those situations? Is it always just based on celebration and luck?
Yeah. Generally, the person who scores the goal will run away.
Yeah.
And you like, and you follow them, and you follow them, and you follow them, and you wait till you the turn round and you see the number on the back. 9 times out of 10, you know who it is. The best scenario is if you have a big striker and a small striker, because you know the difference then. But if you get 3 or 4 players that are all the same height, that all look similar, maybe similar haircuts, like a lot of players are these days, you're like, oh no, who's that?
Yeah.
And the worst ones are striped shirts. Sunderland, Newcastle, Stoke. You cannot see the numbers on the back of their shirts because of the stripes.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Oh wow.
They did have a season where they had white panels with the number on, but then they got rid of it. And I was like, oh, thanks for that. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I've noticed that some Newcastle shirts, like the pattern does stop there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's
not
just
every season.
Yeah, no, it's not every season, is it?
Yeah, it is. There's certain things that you think, oh yeah, I suppose that is difficult. But now I'm between the 2 teams. I can literally lean over and go, who scored that? Who scored that?
And they've got their screens and
and I mean, they watch everything. They watch, corners, set pieces, offsides, and they'll go, oh no, millimetre, fourth, and you're like, oh, give it a rest.
From the touchline, then, who would you say is the most interesting manager you've seen? So both for Leicester and away manager who's come.
Marco Silva.
Okay.
How he's not had a heart attack is unbelievable. He is the most passionate, aggressive, kicks every ball, heads every ball, fights for every throw-in and corner, always at the fourth official. And it's funny, every team will have something called what I call the shouty man. They'll have somebody on the bench whose job is to shout. Because, it doesn't matter you, but if I'm a footballer on the pitch on the far side, you're not going to hear somebody sitting on the bench shouting instructions.
No.
But they still do it.
Yeah.
They sit and basically shout for the whole game.
I've never understood it. Never
Just
understood.
like, what are you doing? Why are you shouting? Stop it. You know, it's crazy. But yeah, I think Marco Silva, away manager, very passionate man. Home manager, Martin
There's not been that many.
No,
really.
there's not. Martin O'Neill, he was quite lively, quite entertaining.
Pearson must have been quite interesting. Very divisive figure.
He was. It was kind of his way or the highway, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
A lot of fans love him. He's probably, I'd say, the most liked manager out of all of them, really.
But I think if you're a player or life in general, I'd rather somebody tell me to my face, this is how I'm going to do it, and if you can't do it that way, you are not going to be part of this. And I think some people respect that, because as a footballer you think, okay, I need to move on, I need to find another club. But Nigel Pearson was quite. But you know what? During COVID, when we had all that time spare, I literally went back from my first game, and I went through how many games I'd done, how many in the FA Cup, how many in the League Cup, how many games we'd won, how many games we'd lost, how many managers we'd had. And I think at the time, I'd been doing it for like 23 years, 22 years, and we'd had 25 managers.
Wow.
Had we?
It's mad. When you go back and have a look, because some seasons we had 3 or 4 managers.
Is that including
mad.
managers who've come back, though? Because obviously Pearson came back and...
Yep.
Right, wow.
But you go back...
Who knows that many?
Oh, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And when you think that people like Martin O'Neill and Brendan Rodgers did 3-4 years, and then you think...
You've had multi-manager seasons.
It's mad.
Yep.
Mad. Absolutely mad. And I went back and went, oh, yeah. You know, Nigel Worthington. Forgot about him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy.
Now, you also told me, I'm going to call it a stat because it's quite impressive. How many times have you actually missed a game in your 26 years?
I think it's 3.
Which
I
is
think
Three
it's
times.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember a game that I've been to that you've not been announcing on.
Because he's only missed 3.
Yeah.
I know, that's what I mean. Like, I was thinking about it and I can't think of one.
Yeah, one of them was a game that was initially on a Saturday. It was then moved to a Monday, and then it was moved back to the Sunday at very short notice. I think it was against Arsenal. And basically, I'd just started a new job, and I got a shift on the Saturday, moved the shift to another day, and then they moved it back again, and I thought, I can't do this again, no. So I had to miss that one. And then I missed 2 through COVID. First one because I had COVID. Second one because I'd been in contact with somebody who had, and they said, stay away. But COVID, you talk about players.
I was going to ask you about COVID.
COVID was very, very, very strange, because I was the director of my own limited company, and we didn't get any money from the government. So literally, I had no income whatsoever.
Because you wouldn't have been at the ground, would you? Because there's no need for it.
You say that.
Ooh.
So, when football started again, I got a phone call from Leicester City and said, Brad, football's starting again. And I thought, yeah, don't rub it in. And they said, we want you to come and announce. And I went, but there's no fans. And they said, yeah, but what they're going to do, they're going to put speakers pitch side, so there's music playing, and basically you will announce as though the stadium is full to give a bit of atmosphere on the TV, because all the games were shown on the TV.
Because you could have the option of having no fan noise or fan noise.
Yes.
Also, was it to make it, I guess, sort of more normal for the players as well, in a way? Because then it's obviously weird for them to not have the announcing when they've scored a goal. Normally they're used to, having someone geeing them up afterwards.
So I was like, okay, so where am I going to be? And they said, well, you'll have your own box. So I had a box. The sound man had a box. He was next door. And basically I'd walk out onto the balcony of the box, announce the teams, and if the weather was appalling, I'd go back in the box, shut the door, and watch the game from a nice box, corporate box. It was beautiful. One game I do remember specifically. It was Manchester United quarter-finals of the FA Cup. Now, any Leicester fan will know that our history of the FA Cup is not good.
No.
And that's being polite. So
3 losses in the final?
3 losses in the final, and last one was 1969, the year I was born. My dad was there. We got the quarter-final behind closed doors. And literally there was about 7 or 8 journalists in front of me. The director's box had maybe 30 people in. And there was me, sound guy, and a couple of other members of staff. And when we won that game, I went mental because the semi-finals were at Wembley.
Yeah.
And everyone was looking around going, and I'm thinking, I followed this club for years. I've seen us lose to Harlow, to Newport County. I said, I deserve this moment. Yeah. So I went absolutely mental for that. But the tragedy was that we got to the final. Did I tell you we won the FA Cup, by the way?
Yeah, I know, I'm a Chelsea fan.
Who was that against?
Yeah.
I can't remember who that was.
I wonder why
who scored the goal that didn't count?
Yeah.
Who scored the handball? Who did handballed it before? We could go back and forth.
But the tragedy was, it was during COVID. There was a restricted crowd, and I didn't go. And the reason I didn't go, no, I didn't go. I could have gone, but I didn't. The reason I didn't go is because the one thing I've never been able to do with this job is that my son is 19. And although he's been to many games, and although he now works on a match day, I have never taken him to his first game as a father because I've always been working.
Wow.
And I said to him, wouldn't it be magical if that first game could be the FA Cup final? So I tried to get tickets, and the government basically said 16s and over.
Oh, I had the same issue. I didn't go.
I was 15 and my son was 15.
I was 15 and it was 9 days till I turned 16 and I wasn't allowed a ticket because I was too young.
So I watched it with my dad, my brother, my son, and we had a great time. And seeing my dad's face, just magical.
Yeah.
I mean, see, because obviously for me, I've watched the best years of this club and all I've known really is success. And my dad was sitting there celebrating and he's going mental. I'm like, why is this big? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Obviously now looking back.
It's funny because I always say there's two types of Leicester fans now. There's people of your generation who have seen success after success. League One, win the Championship, win the Premier League, Champions League, Europa Conference League, FA Cup, Community Shield. And I always say the best thing and the worst thing that happened to Leicester is winning the league. Because winning it was incredible, absolutely magical. I will live that day for the rest of my life, that season. But it just put the pressure on the club to try and maintain that. And we weren't at that level. Yeah. It was a miracle that we did that.
Yeah.
But financially, we weren't at that level to compete regularly in the top 4. I mean, we did incredibly well. I mean, one of the greatest games I ever went to was the Surreal Champions League game.
Wow, I was there on
the
that
scoreboard
one.
Operator at the end was crying. He was crying because he was
crying.
mad.
Yeah.
Schmeichel saving the penalty.
Oh,
it's a good job I had the mic turned off.
Yeah. I'm going to say again, I was in the cop for that game, right in the corner, and all I remember is when that goal went, when that penalty was saved, everyone just thought that's it, we've done it, it's over, and that was something.
Honestly, that was crazy.
And then another interesting question based on that then is, obviously you're a fan of the club.
Yes.
Has it sometimes been weird in those moments not being able to, go mental at the goals and stuff?
Yes. I will have my moment, and then I will compose myself, and I will do my job. It's sometimes it's quite difficult to do it in the tunnel because 9 times out of 10 you'll have 2 massive burly security men from the away team standing just behind you, and when you turn around and go, get in, oh, hello mate, you're all right, yeah, But yeah, I do enjoy the moments, but I generally look back, and again, going back to the victory parade, it wasn't until the following morning when I went back and looked at the Sky footage of the helicopter over the park, I thought, oh my God, that was massive. Just a very quick story on that. So I got there at 11 in the morning, I went on stage at 3, and I was on stage till, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock at night, and we had the women's team, we had Mark Selby from China, we had the basketball team, and literally people in my ear going, riders are coming on now, just won the title, oh okay, and I'd just interview people on the stage, and then Kasabian did a set, and then we had fireworks and everything else, and We had all that. And during the day, obviously, my mates were texting me and FaceTiming me and stuff like that. And my mate in London, he said, "Oh, that's my mate Brad, holding all the madness together." And that was quite a good phrase. And then my wife, God bless her, who tolerates football, shall we say, because of what I do. I'd come off stage. I'd gone into the marquee. There was a marquee backstage with food and drink. And I sat down. I got a bottle of Bud, ham sandwich. And I was absolutely exhausted. And I sat there. My wife sent me a text. And I thought, she's going to say, "I saw you on the telly." And she just went, "We need milk and ham for pack-up." I mean, talk about back down to earth. That was it. And I got in. She was in bed. And I went out like a light, got up the next morning. She went, "How did it go?" I was like...
But I suppose for you, it's sort of... It shows that it is it's a job like any other job. It's still just a job, and you still have a life away from it as well.
It's an incredible moment, but you have to move on.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe it's beneficial for you and your relationship that she actually isn't that passionate about football? Because otherwise your life would literally just be consumed by it.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, my son loves football. My daughter, she's sort of dancing and other things. She loves the theatre like I did, and my son does and my wife does. Thankfully, she's not really into football.
Yeah.
She says she needs to know about football because that's what the boys talk about.
Yeah.
So I tell her little things like, Jamie Vardy scored at the weekend.
Yeah.
All right. You can
Cole Palmer's playing really well right now.
What a player. What a player.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I think you're right. The fact that we're not consumed by it. When I was late teens, early 20s, I used to follow the club home and away.
Yeah.
I went out with a girl that her family were mad Leicester fans, and we used to travel all over the place. And I could do it then, but I can't do it now. Can you imagine if I worked every home game and then every away game? Right, I'm off, love. Where are you going? Off to the football again. It'd be every weekend.
You wouldn't be home every weekend. No,
crazy.
No, that's
crazy.
And so you say you work in betting in London, is that right?
So,
or racing or something like that?
Yeah, basically I started at William Hill, freelance broadcaster. So William Hill was a great grounding because basically at William Hill, you talk about what's on that day. So you need to have a general knowledge of sport. So you might be talking about the Snooker World Championship. You might be talking about horse racing, greyhound racing, football. What's on that night? Is it Champions League? Is it Europa League, Europa Conference League? What sort of teams are playing? You read out a team like Chelsea beat Noah. I had to look up Noah, but now I know they're from Armenia. Yeah. And that's what I'd do. At the start of a day at William Hill, I'd look down the fixture list and think, right, what am I going to be talking about? What are we going to be pushing? Okay, this is what I need to know about. Where are they from? Who have they played? Have they played any English clubs? And you can just drop facts in like that. Down in London, it's basically horse racing and greyhound racing, and that is it. You do a build-up, you do a commentary, sometimes, not all the time, and then you move on to the next race. I'm very lucky because when I first started freelancing, I worked pretty much every day of the week to make a living.
Yeah.
And then I sort of got better jobs, better paid jobs, and I could reduce the amount of work that I did, but still maintain a decent income. And I think that's the key. You know, I mean, I could probably work 7 days a week if I wanted to, but
do you want to?
No, absolutely not.
No way.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. It'll burn you out so much.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky to do what I do, and I have to say that Leicester City opened some doors for me because I've been working at Leicester City only for half a season, and an events company came in and did an event at Filbert Street, and they said, "Do you know anybody who can sit on a mic and do announcements for lost kids for the day?" And they rang me up and said, "Do you want to do it?" And I went, "Yeah." And from that, it was Tops who produced the football stickers and the football cards.
Oh, yeah.
And from that, I worked for them for 22 years.
Blimey. And
basically ended up having a stage, playing games on a stage and interviewing footballers, Premier League footballers.
Sounds terrible.
It was awful, awful. And then one day I got a phone call when 2020 cricket started. I got a phone call from Leicestershire County Cricket Club, and they said, "We're starting this 2020. Our announcer doesn't want to do it because it's not really his bag. Would you come and do it?" And I said, "Look, I'm not an expert on cricket. I know 6 balls in and over. I know the 4s and 6s basically. Don't worry about that. We don't want you for that. We want you to just build the crowd up a little bit. You'll have a statistician sitting next to you. You can ask whatever you like. So I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I went and did the job. The best job I've ever done.
Really?
Bar none.
Wow.
Sitting on a balcony, overlooking the bowler, sandwiches, tea, statistician, batter in, bowler in, But then I met a guy who's the voice of England cricket, Graham Woodward. We got on really well. He worked for Corals. I worked for William Hill. One day he rings me up after about 4 years of doing the T20. He said, T20 cricket World Cup is in England and they need another announcer. Would you be up for it? I went, yeah. So basically I went for this chat with the ECB and I ended up doing a week in Taunton with the women and then 2 weeks at the Cricket World Cup. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I turned up at Trent Bridge. First game I was doing, I think it was Afghanistan versus, I want to say India. And we're sitting in a room and there's loads of people there and the guy in charge says, right, let's just go round and introduce everybody. And basically I'd been told I was like the announcer. So they went round and said, sound, blah, 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 lighting, camera, and this is Brad, our expert, and Mark Durden-Smith, you're the presenter. And I went, hi, how you doing? And I'm thinking, expert? Oh my God. So what I did, little tip for you, I got a clipboard and I went to the sound guy who's an Australian. And I said, Kev, have you got a mic? And he went, yeah, mate. He said, I said, have you got a lead? And he said, yeah, what are you doing? And I said, don't worry. So I got a bag, like a duffel bag that I'd brought, and I got the mic and I plugged it in and I put the lead into my duffel bag. Connected to nothing.
Yeah.
And basically I went outside and I walked round the fans and basically saying, hi, I'm from the ECB. How are you feeling about today's game? What are you looking forward to? Who's the best? Which batsman you're looking forward to seeing? Who's your best bowler?
Oh, that's
and
really smart.
I was like,
That's so
I love that. So I went back in.
I love this story
Right.
already.
I went back in. I went out with the two captains, right, Mark Durden-Smith, and basically I regurgitated everything that all the fans had told me.
That is brilliant.
And I came back, and the sound guy, who knew me from Grace
Yeah.
Road, he went, "Fucking hell, mate, you got away with that."
I think that's like the most important reason you've had success is because of your way of being like adaptable and just being able to, make whatever.
I always say my biggest talent is my availability, but there's a bit more to it than that. If I can give anybody 3 tips, be on time. Being late is an absolute no-no because you're wasting their time and you're basically saying my time is more important than yours. Never be late. It's rude, okay? Be nice. I've got jobs in the past, not because I'm the best, but because people can get on with me. And that's really important.
Mm.
And the third one, be ready, okay? So basically, if you found out that the BBC were interviewing this afternoon for presenters on Match of the Day, would you be ready? What would you wear? Have you got an up-to-date CV? Have you got an audio sample you can give them? Have you got a visual sample you can give them? Be ready for that moment because it might only come once in your life, like Eminem says, But
linking it back already.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring it
It's all
back
full
round.
circle.
Bring it back round. But no, just be ready. It's like when I went for the William Hill interview. They didn't tell me that I was going to do a piece live. But what I did that week up to the interview is I went into William Hill shops and I sat listening for like 2 hours a day. Right, what are they talking about? How long are they talking about it for? What sort of build-up are they doing? What marks are they trying to hit? As far as promotions, etc., etc. How hard are they going on certain things? And then the morning of the interview, I looked at what was on that day, what racing was on, what greyhounds were on, what football was on, if there was any tennis or cricket or rugby or snooker or whatever. So when I went in there, I could drop in a few things and they could go, oh, he knows his stuff, even though I knew bugger all.
Yeah.
But because I'd done a little bit of homework, they're like, oh, he knows his stuff. One talent that I think I've awful long-term memory. Awful long-term memory. Short-term memory, absolutely brilliant. I can read a Wikipedia and regurgitate it because a lot of the time, we don't do it so much now, but we used to do interviews at half-time. And sometimes I'd get very little notice. And basically, I would have to read somebody's Wikipedia page during the first half of a match, and then go out and interview them. And I think that's quite a good art to have.
Yeah.
You know, so you can just go out and regurgitate it. And a lot of times, people have said, "Wow, you're really good. You know your stuff." And I'm thinking, I'm a trained actor, mate. You know, if you want me to be an expert in cricket, I'll be an expert in cricket.
Do you think maybe the acting side of things when you were younger have helped you a lot?
Absolutely, 100%.
It's almost like, I don't want to say it's a character, but you're almost putting yourself in the shoes of.
No, I totally agree. It kind of is a character.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any job that I have done, there's been a training course for.
No.
If you think about it, I read the names out at a graduation ceremony. You know, there's not a degree in that. Broadcasting, yeah, you can do broadcasting now, but niche broadcasting, stadium announcing, is there any stadium announcer courses out there?
Definitely not.
I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
How did you get better at it and get to the point you're at now? Because obviously it must have been quite nerve-wracking doing your first game and not really knowing what you're doing.
I just phone it in. No, I think you learn, and do you know the best thing you can do? Listen back to yourself. People say, "Oh, I don't want to hear," but listen back to yourself, because it's funny. Because when I was in a double act, going back to the acting, back in the day, you couldn't fit. There was no phones or anything like that. But we had one of the shows videoed, and I had this really weird thing where if I stood on stage with my arm down by my side, my fingers would do that. And I was like, why am I doing that? That's really weird. And only because it was filmed, I got to see that.
Mm.
So I think it's important that you look back on yourself. And the other thing as well that I used to do, because I worked with a shorter guy, I would always look down on him. And they were like, don't look down. Don't keep looking down. We can't see your face.
Mm.
Just little things like that you learn to do over a period of time.
Yeah.
So
that hand gesture thing's really interesting, because this is nothing to do with English football, but American football. Patrick Mahomes, who's arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time, he does that when he's in a very high intensity situation. I don't know if that might be a link there somewhere.
maybe it's a nervous.
Maybe you'd be really good at American football.
maybe that's it. I mean, there is another chapter. I'm 55.
Yeah, you never know.
12 years till official returement.
Got time.
American football. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah.
But let's bring it full circle now. What was last season like with the Championship before we wrap things up? Kind of, that's been the most recent title win. What was that season like compared to the 2015 season? Because obviously you're winning a trophy at the end of it.
You are,
but obviously it's Championship.
It's funny
Premier
because
League.
the expectation last season was to win the league.
Yeah.
And the problem is we had such a great start. We won. I can't remember how many games on the trot.
I think it was like 11, 12,
yeah, 11, 12,
like
something like that. Now, if he'd have won 3, lost 1, won 3, lost 1, won 3, lost 1, that'd have been fine. But because he won like 11 or 12 on the trot, and then I think we lost. Did we lose 3 on the spin?
Something like that. I know
it was like,
yeah.
Shake it. Because football's so trigger happy now. You lose 3 games, you're the worst manager in the world. You win 3, you're next England manager. You know, that's the way it works, isn't it? You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And Pep Guardiola, Pep out, and I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
I think that might not be City fans saying that.
Yeah,
that might
might be us.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was a weird season because the expectation was there to win the league. We had the best squad, paying the best wages. We had a good manager who stuck with the system, and although it wasn't that exciting, we got the job done.
Yeah.
We got across the line.
And I'd argue at times it was exciting. I like the football, yeah.
Some of the goals, like this season, even though we've lost games, some of the goals we've scored have been really, really good team goals. Maybe too late in the game. The one we scored against Forest, great team
goal, yeah.
Incredible. But it's there, but it's not consistent this season. But last season, like you say, winning a trophy, it was almost like, we won it.
That's what I wanted to know.
We should have won it.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, I mean the difference.
Yeah.
Oh, the day, because I remember the day at Preston, right? Because I was there. It was a brilliant day out. But then after that, everyone's sort of like, well, yeah, we've gone back up to the Premier League, but we all thought we would.
Yeah.
And that's all it was.
The expectation was massive, and I think that's what winning the league's done. It's just increased expectation over and over again, and the problem is we are. See, when we won the league, I said I don't even consider us a Premier League side because we have not been in that league consistently. We had been up and down, up and down, up and down, and we just had. Well, the season before, it was funny because I worked when I was in League.
The season before you won it.
The season before we won it, it was The Great Escape.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nigel Pearson.
Wow.
I mean, wow. And when we survived, a Stoke fan up north said to me, "How do you think you're going to do this season?" And I said, "Do you know what? I think we'll be all right because you need two things in this league. You need pace and a goal scorer." And I said, "We've got both."
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realise we were in the league, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I wish I'd have a fiver on it, but I still
Jamie
can't
Vardy's
believe.
got both of those in abundance.
No,
so.
exactly that.
I can't believe.
And then last question. Everyone always says, especially in terms of football, don't work for the club that you support. Would you agree with that sentence?
No, not
No?
at all.
No.
I've not paid to watch a game for years. No, it's one of those things where it's the greatest thing in the world and it's the worst thing in the world. Like, we haven't mentioned the helicopter crash, but that was just awful. And it gets me emotional now because when you do minutes silence and minutes applauses, generally you don't know the people you're doing it for, and you can detach yourself from it. But I'd met the guy, I'd shook the guy's hand, and he transformed Leicester City. It was incredible.
It would have been nothing without him.
Absolutely. And that was just an awful day. Awful day. And that's when you earn your corn. I don't earn my corn reading the teams out or the goal scorers. They're the minutes you earn your corn. But it's been incredible to be a part of that. And the thing is, you kind of take it for granted when you walk down the tunnel with the players at the end. And you're sort of in the tunnel when they're coming out doing interviews and eating pizza and wives and girlfriends, and then somebody else will come in and an ex-player will walk down the tunnel, and it's crazy. I tell you the weirdest thing I ever did during COVID. The away dressing room wasn't big enough to fit the away team in because of the COVID restrictions. So they also had the media suite, which was closed off to the media, and the toilets next to the media suite were two single toilets that you had to queue for, and I used those, but so did the away team, right? I found myself having conversations with Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva about international football and travelling, and then, Man United players. Who was the Man United player? Oh, it's bizarre. But I just ended up having conversations with these, and you kind of sort of take it for granted.
Yeah.
And there are people like, "Oh my God, you spoke to Kevin De Bruyne. You spoke to Kevin De Bruyne," and it was like, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And when I look back at the people I've met and the things that I've done, I've had a pretty good run. But there is another chapter.
There is
another chapter.
Well, maybe podcasts.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm pretty good at it. Well, thank you very much, guys, for watching. That was amazing. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.
Really enjoyed it.
Please do subscribe if you're new around here. Like the video if you did enjoy it. I'm sure I certainly did. And we'll see you guys with the next guest. Thank you.